There we go. All right, so let's take a quick look at the agenda, everything I'm going to cover, because I think you're going to want to know this stuff. And I'm going to go really fast because there's a lot to cover. I want to make sure that you get your money's worth here today. So we're going to talk about what is networking really, because I think a lot of people have some screwy ideas about it. We're going to talk about my actual strategy I used to get 29 clients in 42 days. And I want to know from everybody here, who would like to have 29 clients in the next 42 days? Could you just pop a note in the chat that says yes? Let's see that. Good. I'm also going to share with you my 3 major lessons that I learned so that you don't make the mistakes that I learned. I'm not going to have a chance to go into many of the mistakes, but Becky and Lynn and Diane have heard them, and some of them are a doozy. I'm also going to share with you the exact tools that I learned to make this happen, and I'm going to answer all your questions that I can. So if you happen to have a question while I'm chatting, please just sing out. Well, I'm not watching the chat because I'm running the slideshow. So I think it's better if you just ask a question. Becky, don't you think?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the definition of networking. Well, I think maybe a better place might even be to start what isn't networking. And networking is not selling. Networking is not a recruitment opportunity or a pitch opportunity or a job interview. It's not a monologue. In short, networking is not about you and what you want. And a lot of times people think, I will go out and network. And what they mean by networking is they're going to try to hard sell somebody something. That's not networking. But what is networking? Well, it's easy. Networking is connecting to serve, share, and support. And a perfect model for this is the electronic version of networking. So just imagine yourself kind of plugging in your computer, if you will, to the internet. That is being networked. You are connecting. You want to serve, you want to share, you want to support, you want to give, you want to take. That's what networking is really all about. So that out of the way, I want to tell you the true story of how I built my business with networking and how I promise you, I swear that you can do it too. So it all started with business cards, and I'm sure many of you have business cards. Anybody here still have business cards? I mean, it's been a long time since many of us have used them, but Lim says, I do, Becky does. I understand. Business cards are great, and maybe we're going to start thinking of them as contact cards, and that's how I think of them. Is they're a way to give somebody a note, so if they want to get in touch with you, which is a cool thing. But when I first started my business, I hadn't, I was brand new to the coaching industry. I didn't really know many people, even though I'd been to a few meetings around town. This was before I take the lead. But I had a bunch of business cards, and I thought, what can I do with these business cards? And I couldn't think of a thing, so I counted them. And just for your information, 63 business cards. That's exactly what I have. And then I happen to remember someone I had recently seen speak live, and that was Mr. Zig Ziglar. And he said something that has stuck with me for many, many years. He said, you can have everything in life that you want if you just give enough other people what they want. And I thought, you know what? That's kind of my philosophy as a person and my philosophy in business. So what is it that other people want? What can I do for other people to get everything that I want? But that said, I didn't want to work for free. And I think it's not always a good idea to give away services or products or whatever for free without a really good strategy behind it. And so I asked myself, and the reason I say this very specifically is asking myself questions has been a fantastic strategy to help me think through, problem solve, and get where I am today. And so when you have a chance, I suggest asking yourself questions. It's kind of like a self-coaching thing, and it can be really powerful. So I asked myself, if I'm not giving away my services for free, what can I give away? And that's when I had my bright idea. See, I came from a very large family. A blended family, if you will, sort of a Brady Bunch kind of family. In the big picture, we've got a little bit of background noise. If you are not speaking, may I suggest that you put your mic on mute, so that way the rest of us don't hear the typing fingers and the other things that are happening in the background. Okay, so I come from this big family. 10 of us all together when the family started. And here's what I learned from having a big family. Number one, take the big pork chop first. Number two, many hands make light work. And there's a lot more work with a lot more kids in the family, but with all of us there, that many hands make light work. And that is one of the things that, combined with the Zig Ziglar quote, that made me realize that what I could give people for free was referrals. And so I decided, because I had gotten pretty much every job I'd ever had by referral, and I knew about networking. I didn't know much about it as I do now, of course. And again, sadly, I Take the Lead was not around yet, when I first started my career. But I knew that meeting other people, that many hands thing, gave people a boost in business. So my idea was, what if I offered people referrals? I thought, okay. And so what I can do is I've got those 63 business cards. I can call everybody up and see if they want me to refer business to them. Oh yeah. So what did I do? I wrote a script. And I wrote a script where I introduced myself. I put our relationship in context, meaning that I told them where we met, because I had their business card. And this is a thing that I used to do with business cards, is I used to write down a note, like in a date. So where did I meet this person? And maybe it was at I Take the Lead meeting on September 13th, 2022. And that way, when I had this card, whether I added the information to my CRM or if I just kept the card, I would always know where I met this person. And so I had a pretty good idea where I had met almost all of these people. So I wrote a script, and my script invited people to meet with me to see if we could share referrals with each other, because we were, if we were both in business building mode. And it was I gotta say, it was kind of an impressive script, and I'm really proud of it. And I use it to this day. But what happened was, I used the script, I called up 63 people. Well, actually, I didn't call them up all at once, because the truth is I'm an introvert, a really hardcore introvert. And one of the scariest things in the world to me is calling a stranger. So that's one of the reasons I had a script, but it also kept me being very mindful of what I was saying, how I was phrasing my offer, and how I could improve it. So I got this script, and a bunch of people said, yeah, they would be happy to sit down with me and talk about how we could refer business to each other to build our businesses. So this was so cool. So I met with people. For most people, I found out, like, the first day, the best place to meet with people is a third-party public place. I mean, after all, it's a safer thing. Okay, it's not just safety. I'm going to tell this story. So the very first day I called somebody, and it was a guy. I'd met him a couple of times, so I vaguely knew him. I would have recognized him if I saw him someplace. But I told him what I was doing. Do you want to get together? And he said, sure. So he was going to come to my house. So 10 o'clock in the morning, ding dong, doorbell rang. I opened the door, and he's standing there with a bottle of wine. Kind of like, hey, baby. And apparently, I realized an invitation to my personal home could be misconstrued by someone very easily. So immediately I rescheduled all my meetings to meet at coffee houses. Now, remember, I called people to ask them to meet, not to get together for coffee, because that presents a whole host of problems. Who is the host? Who pays? And when you're having a meal with someone, it can be very easily confused, or even just drinking coffee. It's easy to confuse the nature of the meeting, because when you are eating, then you are social, and social is not always business. I mean, if you're at a business place and they serve coffee, it's a different thing. So I would tell people I'd want to meet someplace convenient to both of us. And that happened to be very often at Starbucks. This particular one that used to be open in Portland on 19th and Hawthorne. It's gone now, though. And so to make sure that I got as much information as possible, I took notes. And I'm going to tell you, I said I was an introvert before, but I was shaking when I went to these meetings. I was really scared, but I showed up at the meetings and I was always early. And I wore my name tag high on my right shoulder so I would be easily identifiable. I had my cup of coffee and I had found a table so that I was there with coffee, with my phone, my name tag, ready to, a notes, notepad, and a pen ready to work. And when the people came in, I waved to them, they got coffee, and we sat down. So it wasn't awkward like who buys coffee and stuff like that. It was organized in such a way that it was real clear we're hosting ourselves. Then when they came over to the table, I introduced myself just to remind them who I was. And I pulled out my business card and I told them I was very excited about learning how, and if I could possibly refer business to them, because naturally I'm trying to build my business and I'm going to run into a lot of people and I may even be able to share a client or two. So that started off things really well. And I had prepared a list of questions. So we didn't just sit there and stare at each other and say, so how'd you get into business? Because that's not helpful. And quite frankly, those meetings last for hours. I wanted to be in and out of this meeting in about 30 minutes. I had too many other things to do rather than just sit around, drink coffee all day. So, but I did a couple of important things that I want you to remember. Number one is that I had a very specific notes sheet, which I'll share with you, that you can have that for free. There should be a link in my well, I'll give you a link later today. How's that? So I had a note sheet, but I always had two of them and I had a pen. But before I started taking notes, I asked if I could have their permission to take notes. So I would first look at their business card, and if there was any weirdness about their name, and I don't mean that their name was like Wolfgang or something that's a little unusual, but I would ask people how to pronounce their name. Let's say it's something as simple as Andrea. Well, sometimes Andreas are Andrea or something like that. So I would always say, Andrea, is that Andrea or Andrea? What a lovely name. And that way I would know, because I wanted to make everybody feel very comfortable, and me too. I also told everyone, even though my name is Veronica, I go by Ronnie. So now they're comfortable. Then I said, can I take some notes? Do you mind if I take notes? I don't want to forget anything. And people were like, sure. And this is a very important point, and I'll come to it in a few minutes. So I took notes. I asked them a set of very specific questions designed to help me recognize the right people who were ready to refer to them. Then after about, I don't know, it took me 15 minutes or so to go through all of these questions. And it's very pleasant. People love to be able to talk and to tell you about themselves. Then it was their turn to ask me questions. And of course, they weren't prepared. But luckily, I had 2 sheets of notes. And so I pulled out the blank sheet and I said, well, I've got one of these if that'll be helpful to you. And most people were like, well, sure. And they looked at it and they could see the questions, but they have been watching me ask questions and take notes. And then I would offer them the use of my pen. Now, these days, I have, shucks, I had a pen right here and I took it across the room. I have DIY Marketing Center pens, and I just give it to people and let them keep it. But in those days I didn't. And I said, you want to use my pen? And the reason I did this is so they would actually take notes. Because if someone doesn't take notes, I say, oh, I'll remember everything. They won't. And if people don't really remember, they won't be able to refer. Not only won't they, but they are not likely to refer. So I took notes, they took notes. It was fantastic. At the end of the meeting, we reviewed the notes very quickly, thanked each other, shook hands, and that was the meeting. Okay, so that was what the meetings looked like. I had a lot of confidence in this strategy because I reached out to people by phone. I talked to people, explained to them what my business was about after they explained to me what their business was about. So they were very receptive to hearing from me. And since I was very prepared, I could explain my business in under 5 minutes. So they got 15 to 20 minutes to answer the questions. I got about 5, and they felt like they were great interviewers, but they did get all of the information. So far, everybody's happy. So let me share my results. Okay. I did this for 2 weeks. I averaged 3 meetings, 4 days a week. So that's 12 meetings a week. So but I had no new clients. So the question I had was, what am I doing wrong? Is this a bad strategy? Do I suck? What is it that I'm missing? So what I did was I asked myself a question: what the heck am I doing? I reviewed my step-by-step process. Okay, so connect with others, check. Set up meetings, check. Teach each other how to recognize and refer, check. But then what? I wonder if anyone can tell me what happened. Please post your guess in the chat. Although I see Carol has her hand up. Carol, do you have a question? You are on mute.
No, that was just me high-fiving in the beginning. Sorry.
Oh, yay, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so do we have any guesses in the chat, Becky? What's missing in the step-by-step, or Lynn, maybe you can tell me what's missing in the step-by-step process. Okay, I'm not going to keep you waiting. That fourth step was to share referrals. I was so busy focusing on teaching people how to refer to me, learning how to refer to others, getting my act together, that I really kind of forgot to share referrals. And after all, I've reminded myself of my strategy. We got to give more in order to get more. It is the generous giving of ourselves that produces the generous harvest. And the person who said this is Orison Swett Marsden, who is, I believe, the founder of Success Magazine. And it's right, it's the give to get, but it's not it's not a transactional giving. It is a philosophy of generosity. I support you because I believe a rising tide raises all boats. I support your business, not because I expect you to support mine, but I know by giving to you, I'm helping not only you, possibly your family, but also the families and the people who need your service. And when those people are satisfied, that we have a happier community. There's a ripple effect of generosity and support and giving. And that is really the foundation of this strategy. So I did this. And then I realized there was a really good way to refer, because I tried a whole bunch of things. Now, one time, somebody brought me a big stack of stuff, huge stack, and said, I want you to put these 35 new customer packets in the trunk of your car, and then have them fill out these forms, and then either message them over to me. I'd really appreciate it if you would fax them over first, and blah, 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 blah. And you know what? That's too much work. I'm not somebody's unpaid salesman or customer service rep. So what I discovered was there was the best way to refer is not just say, here is so-and-so's business card, you should give them a call because they rock. The best way to refer is to connect people. Remember, networking is connecting to serve, share, and support. And I found the best way to connect people. Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate the supportive nod, smile there. Thank you. An introduction by email. Absolutely. And, the nice thing about an introduction by email is, instead of telling someone, oh, I refer people to you all the time, or having them say that to me, I would actually have evidence of it. And that would actually, if I'm referring this way, I give people an opportunity to accept the lead, which is incredibly important. So what does that email include? Now, again, just like my referral call script, I do have an email introduction template all made, and I'll show you those in just a few minutes. But let me just give you a quick little rundown of what these introduction emails are. And people are like, well, maybe I want to text. Texting is okay too, as long as you follow these rules. So you can email, you can text. I wouldn't recommend a phone call because those are much harder to follow this model. See, people have to have something that they can see, and that's the important thing here. So number one, you send the email to both people, and you introduce your referral partner, the person you're referring to, as the expert, and you introduce the person you're referring to that person as having questions. You don't have to say, here's a hot lead for you. so-and-so wants to buy XYZ. So I like your expression. Thank you, Becky. That was cute. So you want to say, so-and-so, so I might say something like, Lynn, I want you to meet Becky. Becky, Lynn is an expert in merchant payments. Lynn, Becky had some questions about what kind of merchant payments were going to work for her business. And I said she had to talk to you first. So now that we've done that, we know how to, then we include the contact information for both people and then step out of the interaction. You're not there to broker a deal or to monitor anybody. You can say, now that the introduction has been made, I will leave follow-up in your capable hands. And that's it. That way you're not inserting yourself into someone else's life, and you're also not acting like you expect a commission from this referral. So
Ronnie,
that,
I had
Yeah.
somebody do this. This is a great way to introduce people. I do it all the time. I had somebody do that for me early on in my merchant processing career. And he sent me an extra email saying, by the way, she detests sales reps. Don't get salesy with her. Here's how I would handle it. This worked for me. And he was looking for me to help him save more money on what he was doing. And I went and I followed his advice to a T. And she called and she said, boy, you must have really warned him. And we both got the deal.
Yay.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what a valuable process. Lynn, thank you for sharing that story, because people, I think, need to hear that. And it really helps having that little bit of extra intelligence, which is usually only possible when you do this type of an introduction. And again, whether it's by email or text, kind of doesn't matter, whatever is appropriate for people. But as long as the information is included, and if there's sort of ex parte information to communicate, then you can do that separately, as Lynn had done with him. So, excellent. So let's talk about what were my results when I started referring. So after 6 weeks, worked super hard. It was exhausting. And let me tell you, I drank a lot of coffee, all right? I drank a lot of coffee. And, but very early on, I stopped eating the food there because I had to go home and cook dinner for my family. So, and it was really kind of exhausting. You would think it would be fun to sit in a coffee shop and talk to people all day. It wasn't. And I also want to say one more thing about this. So I mentioned already that the meetings were going to be about a half an hour, more or less. However, I always scheduled a full hour for each meeting after the first week, because what I learned in the first week was that some people come late and some people come early. And when someone is late or early and I'm talking with somebody else, it can get very uncomfortable very fast. Then the whole meeting purpose gets weird. And it's difficult to manage the meeting when people are curious, they don't know what's going on, and they feel uncomfortable talking in front of someone else, or they just misinterpret the whole thing. So many weird stories. I'm not going to go into them, but yeah, although I will say, for example, one time I was meeting with someone who came way early and sat down and said, well, I know I can't sell to you, Ronnie, but I can sure sell to her. And I thought, wow. Yeah, it's people. What are you going to do? So anyway, after 6 weeks, I'd learned a lot of things. And, like I said, an important thing was have that half-hour meeting, have a full hour for that so that I could maybe wash my hands or get another cup of coffee in between the meetings, get my table all cleaned up and be prepared and centered for that meeting. And so here's what happened. I did about 70 meetings over 6 weeks. 70 meetings, people. FYI, a lot of meetings. I'm just saying. But they love me at Starbucks, I gotta say. I gave, oops, I'm going too fast here. I gave 75 referrals. I got 48 referrals. Not all of them were good, but it was something. And at the end of 6 weeks, I had 29 new clients with an average monthly revenue of $350. I think that's kind of impressive. It was pretty powerful for me. It was exhausting, though. It wasn't nearly as expensive as a lot of the things I could do. And what was really exciting was I met a lot of people and I met a lot of friends. And it was, so that I think was extremely groovy. So let's talk about the tools that I used. Okay, so the first thing is I had a meeting setup call script. And the reason is I wanted to be sure that I said the right thing and didn't get too nervous. So when I'm working from a script and I practiced it so it could be extremely smooth and it didn't sound like a, hello, this is Ronnie Noize calling you using a script turn page. So I practiced it and I also wrote it so that it sounded extremely conversational. And I imagined what people might respond. And I didn't put a single word in the script that didn't need to be there. And as I know, Becky, and probably Lynn and Diane have seen this script. I explain absolutely every reason for every word in that script in my little outline. It's pretty cool. So I had a meeting setup call script. I had my little note sheet where I can capture information, which I would later put into a CRM. And then I also had a pre-written email introduction because, if you're going to do something more than once, use a freaking template. Stop reinventing the wheel is the way I feel about it. And so that was easy peasy. I was really happy though. These tools saved my life. So let me just review some of the lessons I learned. The first one, of course, if you're going to do this, start drinking decaf, baby. There's just no way you can make it through 4 lattes a day or 4 cappuccinos. I don't care who you are. It's a little crazy. So the second thing, of course, is definitely going to be prepared. You have to show up for these meetings knowing the purpose of the meeting. You got to know why you were there, what you have to offer, and how the meetings are going to go. If you don't control the meetings, if you don't know what's going on, then the meetings can spin out of control. And I've heard people tell me that they were at meetings like this for 2.5 hours because they didn't know how to end it and they didn't know how to be clear. But when you have the tools and it's real clear, I've got these 6 questions to ask you, and here's the process. Then you can take control of the situation. You can get the maximum done in the minimum amount of time. And then finally, obviously, I learned that I really had to follow the process, and not just the first 3/4 of the process, the entire process. And that process was obviously it's connect with others, set up the meetings, teach each other how to recognize a referral. So how and when to recognize a referral, and also how to refer, which is usually that email introduction. And finally, share referrals. Was that a hand waving at me, Lynn? Trying to get attention? No? Oh, coughing. I hope you're okay. You don't have COVID, do you? Not at this moment.
Just to scratch your throat today.
Okay.
The lawn mowing guys were around, so stuff in the air.
Okay. I get you. Oh, yeah. And also you guys are plagued by that smoky air right now. In the
A little
Florida.
better today, but it's been nasty. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right, my friends. So I have given you the high level recap of my strategy. So, and I've been talking about me and my deal for a while. Now I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about your mission, because, before we wrap it up, let me just say, I understand that many of you are more than just in business. You're on a mission. You have an important message and service or product or experience that you want to share with people because you believe that's your place in the world. And I want to support that. I think that's amazing. I understand because I'm on a mission too, to help small businesses like yours connect with their hungry markets. And a little FYI, your hungry market right now is out there searching for help. They might not know you exist, but the best way for them to find out is through an introduction. So today we talked about how to make that process happen through networking. Networking, I think, is the absolute #1 marketing strategy for small businesses. It's easy, it's affordable, anybody can do it, and it's incredibly, incredibly flexible. And virtually everyone that you would ever want to meet, you can meet through networking. Heck, I got Keanu Reeves' personalized autograph through networking. So if I can do that, you can find a little bit of business. I know that this works because I did it myself. So let's talk a little bit about your next step. So if you use the ideas that I shared today, you'll be able to reach out to those people who need your help, who need to hear what you have to say, and you'll be able to help them imagine and realize, actually live what is possible when you work together. and when they see you as the answer to their prayers. So instead of relying just on your personal circle of family, friends, and neighbors to grow your business, which is really great if you are selling, I don't know, Tupperware, I suggest you can, and no disrespect to Tupperware, I love it. But I suggest that you consider professional networking where you can magnetize a much larger market of people who don't know you, but know people that you know who are looking for help, for solutions like those that you offer. You can do it. And I know it takes a lot of time. It takes some effort to set it up, but it's nothing you can't do. If I can do it, you can do it, believe me. And especially because I have documented every step of the way, as well as all the tools. So let's talk about next steps. So if you've decided, yes, I'm willing to apply this strategy to build my business, the first thing I want you to remember is that it took me 2 weeks to figure out what I was doing wrong. And that was a lot. That's 24 lattes I had to buy before I realized exactly what I was doing wrong. You don't have to do that now. But so what you want to do is, I would suggest downloading my free tools. I would suggest joining the DIY for only $10 to get the rest of the tools for free. And also, if you need to, get help with your networking process. So let me tell you what I've got for you, these free networking tools. And I think I can just pop a little note in the chat here. Yeah, I think I will. Looks like I have not got the chat going on. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so I have got a couple of things. Number one, there is my Join Now, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. And I'll also, as you can see at the bottom of the page, my networking tools. There are 3 tools that I think that you should have, and I want to give them to you today. Number one is the networking introduction formula. That is going to form the basis of the answers to the questions that you're going to be asking. And that's where I came up with this formula. What questions do I need to know about someone to refer to them with confidence? Now, the center thing you're going to see is my Power Partners networking notes. And again, those are free. You can download them, no opt-in, no nothing. And there is a link right there, DIYmarketingcenter.com/networking-tools, not underlined, -tools. So, and that's a great way to take notes and to keep the conversation focused. You can also use that so that people recognize that you have a plan, you have an agenda, you've got your act together, and you're not going to keep them there all day, and you're not prying or being weirdly curious about their business. So you've got a little template with the questions literally on that sheet. And the third thing I thought I would just throw in, because it's got some of this outlined, is a networking strategy cheat sheet. And it is truly a done for you networking strategy, 1 page, because I'm known for the brevity of my good ideas, I guess you could say. I want to get it all to you quickly and easily. So those things are available to you right now for free. Now, I've also got some tools that I think are really handy for my members, and I'll show you a bigger list, but the things that I think would be super exciting and helpful are going to be my introduction by email template. You can create 1 email template and then just customize it as you were sending it out to introduce people. Really handy to know what to say so you don't overwrite, and you also don't get intimidated by that blank sheet of paper wondering, what in the world do I say? It is proven, and it's been edited within an inch of its life. It really works. That's the email introduction template. Thank you for the nod, Lynn. What am I saying, Jean? Next thing is that my script for setting up those meetings. And as you can see, so there's, well, you can't really read it, but you can see there's a bunch of information here. And this explains everything about why you're saying these things and why you ask them. Incredibly helpful. So if you would like, as Jean suggested earlier, to customize this to make it sound more you can, but you understand the purpose of each of these questions and comments, and they're very, very important. And I strongly recommend that you follow this model, if not the exact words. And then the final thing that I think is a fantastic tool is this detailed personal networking plan, and it goes into a lot of detail, much more detail than my little 1 sheet does, that help you understand where you're networking, how you're going to do it, and why. So I think that's super powerful. And then here is my special offer, which I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of stuff I have available at the DIY Marketing Center for small business owners like you who are very busy and working hard to build their business. So they want easy, fast, and verifiable answers. So instead of having to talk to a million people, it's kind of a one-stop shop. Recently, one of my clients said, wow, the DIY is really like the Netflix of small business marketing, isn't it? And I said, yes, plus downloads. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get. I've got classes, recorded webinars, tools, and DIY membership really is only, this is pretty, I think, impressive, $10 a month with no obligation. So you can join for 1 month just to get those things that you want. And then you could be gone, no harm, no foul. You won't be charged again if you don't want to be. But I think most people find it so valuable they want to stay for at least a month or two. And just as a reminder, it also includes my monthly webinars, as well as starting in October, will include a live Q&A with me every month. Okay, so I went into much more detail than I expected. This is why I should always use a script. I have a question for you though. 2 questions. Does anybody have any questions about something that I have said today? And if so, let's talk about those. But if anyone doesn't have a question, I would like to hear, what is the great idea that you took away from me explaining my strategy for how I built my business in just 6 weeks with networking?
I found this incredibly helpful. I love how into detail you went, but yet kept it so simple. Like, I was like, why haven't I thought of this yet? Like, I love that you went into these conversations, because I love meeting new people, and it's one of my favorite things about my job. And I'm newer in my current career, so trying to grow my business, and just seeing how strategic and planned out you were going into these, and having the extra note sheet for the other person in case they weren't prepared. It's awesome. Like, I just think it's genius. And it's so simple though. And you really are, in doing so, showing this other person that you're not just here for their help, like you really want to get to know them and support them and help them grow too. And that's always been my mentality, but just seeing your process, and again, just how planned out you were, it's like, love it.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Thank you, Karen. I love it too, and I can't believe that nobody else figured this out. But I've been teaching it for 22 years now, and by golly, it works.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
You're so welcome, Karen. Who else?
Ronnie, I have a question real quick, just to
Yes, Becky.
So if they want, because someone had asked me about that earlier at the Federal Way meeting. If they want the free tools, so they would get the actual, not the script to invite people, but the notes that you take while you're meeting.
Yes.
What is the link for that? Because she had a hard time finding it.
So it was at the bottom of the page. And so what I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm going to stick it in the chat. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's DIY Marketing Center /networking-tools.
Okay.
There's a bunch of free tools. I think there's 5 or 6 tools on that page. Anybody can just go there and download.
Thank you.
Becky, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I should have had that ready. So who else has a comment about what great idea did you get today? Who wants to go?
I'll throw it out, Ronnie. Basically, and I've heard this a few times, obviously, but the takeaway is, by following this process, even if you don't feel like you're a networking professional, you're going to come across as a professional much more quickly, because you're tight and you're focused. I don't know how many people over the years will come out of a meeting and say, it was a great meeting, I was there for an hour and a half, and I think, they are never going to ask you back. You wasted too much of your time. But the other thing is, you're not just teaching people how to network by giving them these basics, and people, if they start using us, they're going to go right from networking, being a networker, to a connector. Yes. That's really what you want to be. It's about connecting people. Networking is a way to become a connector, and that's what you want to be.
Yes. Lynn, you are so absolutely right. And this is an invaluable skill. Being a connector really puts you close to the crown, or whatever, as they say, at the top of the heap, because the majority of business gets done through people. It's not, everybody thinks that it's advertising or it's social media or it's something, but really it is the personal connection that makes the business world go round. And having this model helps people understand what they have to do so they can forget everything else. And it makes it super clear so that they can show up with professionalism and with an agenda to serve, share, and support, and become that connector that will just yield referrals and so many things over the years. I have noticed it's a positive thing. I'm going to stop the share
Oh,
now.
yeah, so we can.
We've got that. So
So-
anyone else have be willing to share what inspired them or what ideas they're taking away from the discussion today? We heard from
Paula
Karen.
did say in the chat, and I don't know if she can speak, but she said having a second sheet of questions for the person you are meeting. She really liked that idea. So
Yeah, it really has saved my bacon because quite frankly, people don't remember the questions that you ask them. And if they don't know the questions to ask you, then they're not going to be able to refer to you, whether or not it's with confidence.
I always carry 2 pens too, because about 80% of the time, even though these are business professionals and sales professionals, they always forget to bring a pen in with them.
yeah,
Me
Yeah.
too. And you want to know what's funny? I don't know if anyone else does this. Well, you don't, Lynn, I know, because you're a guy and I'm a gal and I carry a handbag. But I use those little toothbrush boxes from the dollar store to put my pens in so that they don't mark up the inside of my purse. And so I always have pens. I know that's a silly thing, but yeah, I always have pens. And of course, for the past 5 years, they've been purple DIY Marketing Center pens.
So I always carry a couple Fisher space pens because they work in upside down gravity and they seal and they're small.
What are you doing at these meetings, Lynn?
So I've done that I always carry a pen for me and a spare.
A pen and a spare is a great idea. Actually, I don't think I want to know what you're doing so that you need things that write upside down. Your personal life is your deal.
So I can write when I'm driving on the road,
Oh, don't
put
say
up
that.
against the windshield.
And then take a picture so that we can see you're driving 50 miles an hour down the street.
Yeah,
Writing. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we have no questions, but I really would like to hear what is it that sparked for someone. Anyone get a little nugget, if only inspiration today?
Well, I have a quick question. You talk about giving out referrals.
Uh-huh.
You're meeting these people and you're giving out referrals, but what if you don't have a whole lot of leads or referrals to give to someone because you're newer in the industry or,
It's Leela, right?
Yes.
That is such a good question. And so here is what I discovered. You need to go to networking meetings because you will meet the most people the fastest there. And particularly, you will probably meet people that are going to be like the people you're networking with and will very often need the exact same type of services and connections that you need. So you need to get out there and be circulating. And it's really hard, especially people who are introverts like me. But I actually created a whole class on how to work a room, even if you're an introvert, so that even people like me can be comfortable going to the meeting. But what you need to do is get out there and circulate. But don't make the mistake I did. Be extremely careful and don't get yourself elected president of the local coaches association or the Women Entrepreneurs Organization because they're going to work you like a dog.
Okay.
But yeah, you need to get out there and network. My recommendation in the Portland, Seattle, Denver area, I take the lead.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ronnie,
Charlie?
someone once told me that her secret to success was to give to givers.
Mhm.
And I never really understood it except, be a generous person and it gets reciprocated. But when you talked about or really illustrated how integrating your own referral system and making sure that you are prodding that along. And I liked how you said to introduce them as the expert and someone who has questions. That's a very warm way to create that referral environment for them. And I can only imagine how much that's been reciprocated to you. Well, I don't have to imagine, you actually showed us, so.
Yeah, and that was in the beginning. Yeah, so, and what's really cool is that people do love that style of referral because they feel good being an expert. And keep in mind, you're not saying that this person is the expert, the number one expert in the entire world. They just know more than we do about that thing. And the person that you're referring is not a beggar, but someone who maybe has some questions, who needs a little advice, possibly a little guidance. And so that makes them feel like they're really taken care of as well. Like you listened and you cared about them. And that's one of the things, truly, I credit this with this process for not only getting me a bunch of clients, which it certainly did, but getting me integrated into the business world when I didn't know anybody and I had no reason for anyone to like me or trust me, which is a few meetings like this and a few referrals, and all of a sudden I'm everybody's best friend.
Well, what I love about the language you're using also is if you put yourself in the referee's shoes, you're telling them that they're important. They have questions and you're hoping that this person who's an expert can help them. You're telling them that they're important. At the same time, you're also telling the referrer that, or the whatever, the person who you're referring to, the expert. You're showing them a lot of deference. I mean, that's also a very warm, that's a very warm, generous way to frame them as well. So, it seems like a way to connect people where, it's not a burden to either. In fact, it's a very, it makes both of them feel important. It makes both of them feel good about it. And how could they not throw business at you? Like, really,
Exactly.
how?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Charlie, because I think that really is the secret of the success of this process. Is it's filled with respect, and you're really building a reputation and creating connections, as Lynn said, and you're giving your best and you're allowing other people to give their best, but you don't have to work for free. But you're giving relationship, support, respect, connection. Thank you for your comments, Charlie. Becky, I'm going to throw it back to you. We've just got a couple of minutes left today, it looks like. Oh,
You're on
Becky,
mute.
you're on mute.
Yeah, I keep muting because our air conditioning's on and I'm one of the noisemakers. So
Sorry.
just ignore it. Sorry about that. Well, that is absolutely wonderful, Ronnie. Thank you so much. I want to mention, over the years, I've known you, gosh, how many years has it been now?
18.
18 years.
Mhm.
We've been networking together. We've been networking mastermind partners. And over the years, I see people say, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this. They take it and they come and they complain, oh, it doesn't work. Well, what did you do? Well, how long did you set the appointment? How long did you meet with? Oh, well, it was a 2 hour, oh, it takes so long. They're meeting with people for 2 hours at a time. They don't, if you're going to follow it, you got to follow it. Follow Ronnie's plan because she's got it down. She's part scientist, I think. So, and neural NLP person and all that. She's got the language. She's got the whole thing down. So, yeah, it's great information. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always good stuff. And this is a good way to get out there, to get meeting people. And if you don't have a lot going on, this will create a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like creating an instant local network, even if you're doing everything virtually.
Yeah, and if you think you don't really have anything to offer for networking, you're going to find out you're wrong. You get out there. When I started with Becky's group years and years ago, I thought, I probably am not going to be very useful. I just didn't know what I was doing. So you figure it out as you go along. And you don't have to refer somebody that is an absolute need. It could be like, oh, I met a healthcare broker over here and a P&C person. They should be talking to each other. That's a referral. That's an
Yeah.
introduction.
Mhm.
And yeah, and Lynn's really good at that. He's a great connector. So yeah. So I want to thank everybody for being here. We're really, really glad that you all were here and able to hear. A couple of people were having a hard time staying on because their connections weren't good, is why. So we lost like 4 or 5 people due to their connections. But thank you so much, Ronnie. It's wonderful seeing you, and we all miss you out here.
Becky, thank you so much for inviting me today. It's been my pleasure. I've loved seeing you. And it's, I wish we could go for coffee.
I know. Wait, are you coming back to visit us?
No,
Okay.
but I'm hoping that since Jean has relatives here in Iowa, that you'll show up at some point.
Oh, you never know.
So, Paula, thank you very much for your comment in the chat. So before we say goodbye, though, has everything been said that needs to be said? Does anybody have anything else? Israel?
Yes, hi. Yes, hi. My name is Israel. Nice to meet you, everybody. I really like your idea. And it's funny because I'm actually reading a book called Never Eat Alone. And it says exactly your idea. So I want to recommend
Not
that
quite. I have that book, but thank you.
book. Yeah, it's kind of the same idea. So yeah.
Yeah, he does. He does have a very similar idea about never, but it is significantly different, and especially about the part about eating a meal. Can be very different. So my recommendation is absolutely, I think it's Keith Ferrazzi, The Never Eat Alone. I think it's a great book. Start with My Little Process first. And then when you graduate to Expert Networker, you could totally do his thing.
And when you do this thing, stay away from anything with sauces, especially if you like to wear white shirts. They'll ruin it.
Or
Oh,
anything
man.
green, like green spinach.
I've taken that personally, Lynn.
I started ordering specific items at the spaghetti factory because I messed up a couple shirts. It's like you learn
Oh.
right away. These are the menu items that's safe to eat.
Well, very good. Well, thank you. Ronnie, any last words?
Yeah. Yesterday was the National Day of Encouragement. But so I'm going to have a little day after for anyone who's feeling in need of encouragement. You really can do this process. And if you choose to do it, thank you. Use my tools, but also follow the process and remind yourself that it took me a while to get it right. This is part of that numbers game, but it is the most rewarding thing I've ever done for my business and probably the most profitable. So I encourage you to write it into your schedule and make it a part of your marketing strategy going forward, that you're going to be networking. You're going to go to I Take the Lead meetings, and you're going to use my one-on-one strategy to build a network so that you can become known, liked, and trusted. And that will drive the prosperity right into your business. So thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank
I had
you.
one
Thanks,
other,
Ronnie.
Thanks.
Meredith?
yeah, I had
Oh.
one other question, actually. So once you've established a network of people, then do you still continue to meet with people over coffee, in the future? Or do you just
So-
stop doing it?
Well, and again, it's not over coffee. It doesn't need to
Right,
be
well,
over coffee.
you just
Yeah,
meet with them over whatever, yeah.
yes. Yeah, on an as needed basis. There have been a couple of years when I restricted it to nobody because I was just too busy. I couldn't accept more. And it isn't that I couldn't accept more referrals. I couldn't accept the obligation to refer more. And I have a very large referral base right now. But there's always attrition. So you can scale up or scale down. One thing though is once you hit where you're that place where you say, well, I'm really full, I would suggest doing like one meeting a week or one afternoon a month, just to keep the connections going and to keep meeting new people. But like I said, I have stopped doing it, Meredith, for every once in a while, and I've always regretted it. And I've always gone back to keeping the process new, bringing new people into the process and making new connections. And it's always paid off. I mean, I'm not saying I always get referrals from each person, but it's always been a good idea somehow, some way. I've been able to help someone, they've been able to help me, or been able to introduce people, as Lynn was suggesting earlier. So this becomes a never-ending strategy. which is why I say drink decaf.
Well,
Thank you.
good.
Great question, Meredith. I've never been asked that question. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I'm
nice meeting you,
surprised.
Meredith.
all right, Becky, is there anything else we need to say?
No, thank you very much. I will be sending out the replay, not tonight, but tomorrow sometime it'll be coming out. So glad you're all here. Thank you, Ronnie, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Becky.
so much.